It was a cold winter evening in Boston, the kind of evening when the wind whispers memories you thought you'd forgotten. Isabella stood by her window, watching the city lights flicker beneath a delicate blanket of falling snow. She had just returned from her honeymoon, not with the man she once dreamed of, but with a stranger she had married only a few weeks ago. For most of her life, Isabella had believed in love, the kind that fills your heart before you even realize it, a love that feels like destiny. She had found that once, in college. His name was Liam. They met in a literature class, a place where stories were born, and theirs was no exception. He was the quiet one who always sat near the window, sketching the world outside instead of taking notes. She was drawn to him instantly, to the way he saw the world, not in facts and figures, but in colors, emotions, and fleeting moments. Their friendship grew into something beautiful, something deep and unshakable. They promised to chase their dreams together. She wanted to write novels that would make people feel, and he wanted to paint canvases that would make people see. They were two halves of a whole, planning a future painted in the vibrant hues of their shared passion. But life, as it often does, had other plans. It's funny how quickly a perfect picture can be torn apart. One phone call was all it took. Isabella's father, a man she had always seen as invincible, had suffered a devastating financial collapse. Their world fell apart. They lost their home, their savings, everything that had once felt so secure. Under the crushing weight of the stress, her mother's health began to fade. In the middle of that storm, her father made a desperate, heart-wrenching decision to marry her into a wealthy family friend's household, securing a future for them all. The man's name was Daniel Carter, a successful businessman from New York. He wasn't cruel or unkind, just distant, practical, and reserved. He lived in a world of logic and transactions, a world so different from the one she had built with Liam. The day Isabella signed the marriage papers, she felt her heart shattered into a million irreparable pieces. Each stroke of the pen felt like a betrayal to herself, to Liam, to the love she was giving up. Liam tried to stop her. He found her just as she was leaving, his eyes pleading. "You don't have to do this, Izzy," he begged, his voice cracking. "We'll figure it out together. We always do." But she couldn't look him in the eye, couldn't bear to see the pain she was causing. "My family needs me more than I need love," she whispered, the words tasting like ash in her mouth. And just like that, with a final gut-wrenching look, she walked away, leaving her past, her dreams, and her heart behind. The first few months of her marriage were as silent and cold as the Boston winter. Daniel was polite, but there was no warmth between them, no connection. They shared a house, but it was far from a home. It was a beautiful, empty space filled with unspoken words and lingering sadness. He worked long hours, often returning late into the night, and she spent most of her days lost in old memories, writing unfinished letters she could never bring herself to send to Liam. Each day was a quiet echo of the life she could have had. Then one evening, something changed. A storm was raging outside, mirroring the turmoil she felt within. Daniel came home soaked, exhausted, and visibly frustrated from a deal that had gone wrong. But instead of going straight to his office as he usually did, he stopped in the hallway. He saw Isabella in the kitchen, struggling to fix a leaking pipe under the sink, her hands trembling with frustration. He quietly stepped forward, a shadow in the dimly lit room. He took the wrench from her hand, his touch unexpectedly gentle. "You'll flood the whole kitchen if you keep that up," he said, a hint of amusement in his tired voice. And in that moment, surrounded by the dripping water and the storm outside, they both laughed. It was awkward, soft, but undeniably real. It was the first sound of life in their silent house. From that night on, the ice began to thaw. Little moments like tiny seeds started to shift everything. He would leave a cup of coffee on the table for her in the morning, knowing she couldn't start her day without it. They started taking shared walks in the park, the silence between them now comfortable instead of heavy. They discovered a shared love for old jazz music, and their late-night talks drifted from polite small talk to stories about their childhoods, their fears, and their quiet sorrows. Daniel started showing her the side of him that no one else had seen, a man who was gentle, thoughtful, and broken in his own way. He confessed that he had lost his younger sister years ago, and in his grief he built impenetrable walls around his heart to keep from ever feeling that kind of pain again. But Isabella's quiet kindness, her patient presence, was slowly, carefully, breaking them down brick by brick. She wasn't trying to fix him. She was simply seeing him. One evening, as they stood on their balcony watching the first snow of the season fall, he turned to her, his expression serious. "I never thought I could love again," he said quietly, his voice barely a whisper against the wind. "I didn't think my heart was capable of it, until I met you." Isabella looked at him, at this man who was once a stranger, and felt her eyes fill with tears. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of recognition, of a profound and unexpected peace. For the first time in her life, she realized that love isn't always about fireworks or a passionate, all-consuming fire. Sometimes it's about peace. Sometimes it's a quiet, steady flame that warms you from the inside out. It's the feeling of safety, of being understood, the feeling that feels like finally coming home. Years later, while cleaning out an old desk, she found one of her dusty, forgotten letters, one she had written to Liam but had never sent. It read, I hope you find someone who loves you the way I couldn't. A gentle smile touched her lips as she carefully folded the paper, because now she had found her love not in the boy she once dreamed of, but in the stranger who had quietly, patiently loved her back to life. Sometimes love doesn't arrive like a thunderclap when we expect it. Sometimes it finds us when we've stopped looking, in the most unexpected of places, and quietly rebuilds us. Thank you so much for watching this story with me. If it touched your heart, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more stories that find the beauty in the unexpected. See you next time.